All right, everybody, we are back with this, I believe, is episode 18. When I started doing these back in November on a dare, I was like, okay, but so much fun. So today's theme is very much like last week's theme, which is self-love with a dose of healthy self-acceptance, right? And if you're new here, I am Dawn Scannell. I watched your thing today on Facebook. I was like, oh, why don't I do one of those? So thank you.
Right?
I probably should send you a couple of dollars. So I'm going to read it because I haven't practiced
Jen
enough.
Gottlieb instead. It's from her. She gets the credit.
All right.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
I am Dawn Scannell, and I help women bounce back and bloom by building their resilience muscle through mindfulness, self-love, personal wellness, and defining their support community. Life happens. Bounce back and bloom.
Love it. Bounce back and bloom. That's going to be, I feel like that I now need to have like a tattoo that says bounce back with a flower around it. Now.
There you go.
It's my list now, like of tattoos that I'm going down.
It's on my t-shirt list.
Oh, I love it.
So all that being said, please introduce yourself, Miss Lindsay.
Hi, yes. So I am Lindsay Ray. I am an empowerment photographer, and I help women overcome body insecurity and negative self-image with my self-love experience photography sessions.
And if you haven't yet, you need to check out all her stuff because it is so beautiful. And it makes me feel better about myself every time I go through the pictures, and none of them are me.
That's the goal is that because these are real women and these are, I mean, every woman is real. That's not fair to say. And I actually have a problem with that when we talk about women on the runway as anything less than real, because every woman is real and is deserving of being valued as such. But when we look at the average woman who doesn't fit into the size 2 34D breast, like we have little to compare ourselves to in the media and in the news. And that's what I'm trying to do here is bring an awareness of what natural, and not natural as in no Photoshop, but natural as in the real women of our community, what we look like.
I love that. And also, it's not just that we don't have any mirror to hold up against ourselves. Society is so far against us, right? We are hit with negativity about falling outside of those boundaries on the daily.
We are. I actually pulled up a couple statistics because they were so shocking to me that I wanted to share because it's kind of wild. I want to pull this up because it was crazy to me when I saw it. All right, ready? A study conducted in the Florida House Experience, a healthcare institution, uncovered that men and women both compare their bodies with those in the media. This survey included 1,000 men and 1,000 women and focused on their body image, confidence, and the media. And it found that 87% of women and 65% of men compare their bodies to images that they see on social media. And in that comparison, a stunning 50% of women saw their body unfavorably. And this is in a scientific study that's been done on our mental well-being and how it's associated with social media. And that's why in this past month, I've made it such a big effort of mine to get my message out there. Because when you see statistics like that and you feel like you can't do anything about it, it hurts.
It really does. It really does. Like I looked over at myself on camera when you started talking about the statistics and I'm like, look at the empathy in your eyes, Dawn. Like it's a thing, right? Like I went a few years back, I went to Washington, D.C. for a big mindfulness weekend. And I had just gotten off the bus and I'm pulling my suitcase, headed to my, Washington, D.C. apartment for the weekend.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's a whole fantasy around that for me. But here I am. And this woman's walking towards me and she stops. She goes, I love your hair. And I went, oh my God, thank you. Thank you so much. Like I rode that wave for the next 48 hours. Like, oh my God, she noticed me. Like that felt so good, right? Because you're in a strange place and you're like, oh God, don't anybody look at me.
I drive, this is me and Natalie, who is my makeup artist. We get in this debate because I'm like, drive the extra 3 miles to the Hoosick Street Starbucks. They're so nice there. And the reason I drive out of my way to go to this specific Starbucks is because no matter what, they're always complimenting me. It doesn't matter how bad my day was. Sorry, I'm knocking everything over here. It's getting a little, the other day, our heat in the studio was completely off and it was 43 degrees and now it's 80 degrees and too hot. So we'll get the balance eventually. But yeah, I drive all the way over there just because I love that interaction and that ability to connect with a real person, especially in this age of coronavirus where we're not getting, I mean, this is human interaction here, but to see a breathing person and see them moving in real time is just a different experience. So it's worth it. I will go somewhere just for the kindness of people, even if it's out of my way. And I live my life that way. And I try to encourage other people to do the same thing. Because it's my belief that when you feel good, and this came from Mr. Bowie, who was our high school theater intern.
Yes.
Say to us, I would come into high school every day with like the makeup under my eyes from the night before. I was dating a college boy and definitely not doing what I should have been doing. And it's so funny. But Mr. Bowie, he would come in and he'd say, Lindsay, if you look good, you feel good. If you feel good, you do good. And out of everything that I learned in high school, that stuck with me as what would motivate the rest of my work is if you can make people feel good, you can make people do good. And so my way of reaching out to the world and my attempt at doing good is to throw all these little pebbles through every woman that I photograph that gives them confidence so that way they feel good and can go out in the world and do good. Because when you're confident, it's easier to compliment someone else. It's easy for me to look at you and say, I love your hair. I love your eyes and the shape of your eyelids and how much fun it would be to do makeup on them because you've got good lid space. And there's things that you may not even look at yourself and see, but other people see. And when I can give my clients that power to feel good, it's my hope that they'll go out and continue to spread the message to other women and continue to treat people better and do better because of that.
I love that so much because a lot of times when I'm feeling really down about, my looks or whatever, right? Whatever is happening, I feel like as a woman, it all eventually lands there, no matter what's bothering us. How can I beat myself the hardest? Oh, go look in the mirror.
Right.
And sometimes I'm like, God, I wish I could just for 5 minutes be able to see myself through the eyes of somebody who loves me deeply. Right?
Clients come to me, honestly, because that's what we tell them. And that's what I do is people will come to me and they'll say, I want this, 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 and this. And I say, okay, great. Tell me at the end of our session. I don't want to know now because I want an opportunity to see you. I want an opportunity to see you for myself and to see what I love about you and what I feel from you and what about you draws me in. And then after I've gotten an opportunity to see them for myself, then I'll say, all right, what do you want? Let's see if we can incorporate that in there. Because it's so important for you, my clients and myself even. Actually, I live this. I get my photos done every year from another photographer. They're all over my house. And it's important to see yourself through other people's eyes because the mirror is so skewed. We get one thing, maybe we'll be lucky if we're in a dressing room and have two, but there's no big dimension around us that's showing ourselves from any other angle than the front of our eyes. We can't see from the side. We can't see from the back. We can't see from above. We can't see from below. We are stuck in a single perspective on what we look like. So when people come to me, I get to say, let me show you your other angles. Let me show you what you look like when you lie down and you may be lying on your back and somebody walks in the room. Let me show you what you look like when you pull your shoulders back and stand up tall because you're proud of yourself. Because you don't get to see yourself that way.
Right.
We're literally narrowed to only being able to see.
Right. Basically what we're looking at on camera right now.
Exactly. And
right? The bathroom mirror.
I could turn my head and now I can't see myself, but you're getting this whole other angle of me.
Right. We don't get to see ourselves laughing. We don't get to see ourselves like sincerely smile at what somebody else has said. Oh, you froze up on me. There you are. So I was saying we don't get to see ourselves. That's okay. We don't get to see ourselves in the middle of a laugh or, a smile that comes from, our special person that we're talking to, right? That changes everything about your face. It changes everything about your eyes and what's happening in your eyes. And we don't get to see those moments. We just go and we look in the bathroom mirror like this. Yeah, see, I hate myself.
I have clients that come in where I tell them, like, there'll literally be times where I'm like, I'm going to take a hammer and smash every mirror in your house because they're clearly broken. Like, you clearly have broken mirrors. And I started making a joke with that. I call it like broken mirror syndrome now. Your mirror's wrong. I'm sorry. Like, your mirror 90% of the time is going to be wrong. You have bad lighting, it's going to be wrong. Your mirror's too low, you're going to look wrong. You're not able to see yourself from any other perspective. So it's so important that we put ourselves out there and we do things that allow us to be seen in other ways. And that's really, really, really scary. Really scary to put yourselves out there. And my clients, they'll book a year in advance and they almost always have that point where they're like, I'm going to chicken out. And then to me, that power comes from making that decision to be like, you know what? I am going to be vulnerable and I'm going to let another person see me. And that gives you power to be seen.
Absolutely, it does.
Really powerful.
Yeah. Usually the things that scare us the most, if we follow through, always are empowering, right?
Yes,
like, do the things that scare you.
Exactly. I have a 7-year-old daughter and her name is Gaia. And
she's so beautiful.
She's so cute. I love her. She's so sassy. She's like a 19-year-old in a 7-year-old's body.
Well, that comes right through.
She's more like a 40-year-old going through early menopause in a 7-year-old's body because her humor is more dry than anyone you will ever meet.
Oh my God. My spirit animal.
Oh my God, I love her. Her babysitter comes in. She's like, where does she come up with this stuff? Where does it come from? And it's probably me. But we have this saying in our house where I say, what does brave means? Brave means you're scared and doing it anyway. So to me, we define bravery by doing something in the face of fear. And that's a lesson that I teach my daughter and a lesson that I am working on myself. Being on camera is scary, even as a photographer. I moved to New York City when I was 19 to be off Broadway and on Broadway and wanted to be on film. And I was so scared and so insecure in myself that I found myself on the other side of the camera to hide, where I was able to project what I was hoping for onto other people and what I needed to happen to me onto other people. And that started to be what shifted how I saw the world. When you learn the tips and trades of photography and videography and you understand diffusion filters and lighting, you realize that the world is not as it seems when it's depicted in magazines and movies.
Absolutely. Like, I've always said this. My late husband worked in film and TV. He was an audio engineer, which is why my lighting is so on point, because you don't hang around that.
Lighting. I sat down and I was like, I need to go get me one of those lights from over there. I got to catch up to Dawn.
Yeah, you pick up some things. So, but I've always said, you can be walking down the streets of New York City yourself and you smell the garbage and you see all the spit and the gum and stuff on the sidewalks. But when it's on film, it's like so stunningly beautiful. Like, all of that goes away. They haven't removed any of that stuff really, right?
But it's like where your perspective is.
Correct. Right.
They're controlling your perspective.
Yep. Yep. Which, I guess what we're saying is we need to shift the perspective about how we see ourselves.
Exactly. And it's such an extremely difficult thing to do, because so many of us, and I'm 34, and my parents are in their 60s and their generation was not raised to really accept a heavier set child. So for me, I was only a size 12 in high school. Now I would love to be a size 12. I'm a size 20. But so much of my life was based on the concept of you could only be good enough if. You could be good enough if you lost weight. You could be beautiful if you took your hair down. You could be beautiful if you got your teeth whitened, if you stopped picking your skin, if you looked like this person on the movies, if you wore a different color, if you didn't wear this. And there was never a point in time where it was just you're beautiful. And I think that the only thing that's going to change this isn't going to happen in our generations. It's going to happen for all of our kids. And that's because we have an opportunity to change the scope of the future by raising our kids to feel better about themselves. Because when you have that, you act different in the world. And if we as mothers and as women can go out in the world and raise these children to feel good about themselves, they'll do so much better. They won't be mean. There'll be more kindness. But that's got to start with you.
Absolutely.
You notice how I point at myself because I gotta listen. It's one of those whole I'm great at saying it, not that best at taking my own advice, but
we're all that. We're all that.
Right.
On our best days, we're really good at it. But on days where, things aren't happening the way they should, it all falls away and we revert to old habits.
Exactly.
Yeah, I have one son and I have two bonus sons. So I am a mom of boys. And, I was always like, I wish I could raise a daughter. I really wish I could raise a daughter and tell her the things that weren't told to me. But that didn't stop me from raising a damn good son. Right.
And that's so important. I was speaking the other day with Lee, who works for the Times Union, and we were having an entire conversation about how I think Douglas Imhoff is doing incredible things for feminism. And it's the same thing when you look at racism. If you look at racism as a Black problem, then you're the problem. It is a white problem that needs to be solved. And that's the same thing with femininity and feminism. It's not a woman problem. It's not our issue. It's their issue. So when you get men out there, and that's what's amazing about you as a mom, is to be able to talk about that and look at yourself as a mom and say, I raised a good son. You're sending him out there to make sure that those women that he interacts with, or men, whoever it may be, are getting someone who's not judging them, who's not forcing them to do things out of their comfort zone, who's respecting them, who's seeing a woman or a man who can do things. That's what's important. That's how we're going to change things. It doesn't matter if it's a boy or a girl.
Correct.
Because the only way to impact women is to change the way that men accept us and to change the scope of where we sit in the leadership of the world. And that's happening with Kamala and Douglas, and how he's just standing there and just lifting her up, just raising her up with so much strength and gratitude. And we have this joke. I'm a Jewish woman, so we always say Douglas Imhoff is Jewish. We always say his mother's probably like, he could have been a doctor. Could have been a doctor, honey. But instead he's the first, the second gentleman. So it's just incredible to see someone that came from a culture like I did, where it's always, the woman takes a step back, the man leads the family. To see him so gracefully shift.
It's amazing. He does it effortlessly. Like you see him, they're together, and when the cameras come out, he just shifts, right? And waits till they're done and then joins her again. And there's never a look that says, oh God, I got to get out of the way. He just,
right. And there's no, I wish it was me. It's a true, no. He truly sees her power and honors it.
Yes, because I love the camera shots that aren't on her, like somebody else, and they're on him after he stepped away. And the expressions on his face, I'm like, oh, get you a guy that looks at you the way Doug looks at Kamala.
And that's why I left my ex-husband. He's an incredible guy. I mean, my ex-husband is an amazing father, a really good human being, but he wasn't my human being. And that's something that I wish more women could be able to say for themselves, especially if we're talking about, blooming and regrowing from a place of difficulty. For me, I needed to look and say, it's okay to respect someone and still not be happy with them. And it's okay for me to say, you know what? I divorced somebody who's a really, really good man. He's a great person. He's just not my person. He doesn't lift me up. He doesn't see my power. He wants me to be quieter, and he needs me to step aside and step back behind him. My partner now, the other day, we went to get him a suit, and we walk into Mark Thomas, and he asks him what he's doing. When I first met my partner, he was in pharmaceutical sales, and now he's supporting me ever since COVID. And he says, I am here to help her dreams come true. And that was such a powerful shift, because yes, it came from him, but that came from me valuing myself and going out and finding someone that saw that within me.
Right.
You can't do that until you value yourself enough to say, I'm not happy, and it doesn't mean that this isn't a good person, but I deserve to be valued the way that I want to be.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. We absolutely teach people and have people gravitate towards us and treat us well by what we accept, right? And when you know better, you do better. Who's that?
Exactly.
Maya Angelou via Oprah Winfrey.
Yes.
When we know better, we do
Danny
better,
Feldman,
right?
my mother. That was one we heard growing up all the time. It's wild. I think a lot about how we can go out and continue to impact people through more than just the photography, and how we can start to make these small shifts, throw these little pebbles into the world in order to begin these shifts. And I think that there's a lot more that everybody can do to support this mission. Um, Selfie culture is something I am very pro, but I am pro selfie where you show not nude, but just show your body. We all are so afraid and only let people see our face. Your body is beautiful. Your body carries you through the world. It's like your body created a child. You literally built an entire human being in your belly, and well, in your uterus, sorry. But and then they like went into the world. Like, you did that. That's insane. That's amazing. That's a miracle. But you're ashamed of it. How do we change that?
Right.
What do today to accept yourself a little more? And so I have a Facebook group, a private Facebook group with about 7,000 women in there. And I started doing these challenges. At first I was doing them daily, and then things started to pick up, and I started doing them weekly, self-confidence challenges. And my first challenge was post a picture of yourself with no makeup on your Facebook and see what people say. It was so scary for me, and it was really, really scary for my clients and the participants. But what they learned is that people don't see you the way that you see yourself. And when you start to accept that and shift yourself, you can begin to accept and give the same back to others. And then we did one where I made them go and introduce yourself in one sentence. Tell us who you are. Like you did today, that same, who are you in one sentence? Because when you have your elevator pitch, you can just say it to yourself. I could be having a really, really tough day and worried about my ex-mother-in-law, or my mom's annoyed at me for spilling the family secrets, or whatever it may be. And then I can recite to myself, okay, I'm an empowerment photographer. I help people, I heal, and I can use that for my own worth and my own building up of who I am. So I encourage everybody to do that, whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you introduce yourself and you say, hi, I'm Lindsay, I am a mom, or hi, I'm Lindsay, I am a sister, I love my siblings, I make it my goal to support them. Whatever it is that you are, get out there and say it with pride. When you believe in yourself, you are so much better to other people.
I love that. Like, you that in itself, let's circle back to that, is so empowering, that you don't have to have a big mission. Like, you don't have to have some big fancy job or be an entrepreneur. You can be just like, hi, I'm Dawn. I love reading to children. I think it's so important to instill that love of fantasy and books, and take ourselves out of the everyday, right? Like, who doesn't think that that's cool?
Exactly.
If that's all I'm doing, that's cool.
It is. And this morning I actually got, not an argument, but I had said to my boyfriend, I was like, maybe now that I'm getting all these interviews, maybe your family will be proud of me. And he looked at me, he's like, they don't care. They don't care what you do. They don't care what you wear. All they care about is if you're nice to me and you make me happy. They're like, you could work at Stewart's and they would think you were great if you made me happy. And that was really difficult for me because I didn't come from that culture. I came from a culture that you had a list, Ivy League, this, that, this, that, this. And it was this laundry list of what made a person acceptable to be with and be accepted by my family still. Not my mom or my dad, and just the entire culture that we grew up in and the neighborhoods we grew up in. So for me to hear him be like, I could work at Stewart's, a gas station? Like, who the fuck am I? Like, sitting in a studio that I rent, like, who the fuck am I to judge? Forgive my French, like, I hope that's okay. But like,
absolutely.
who am I to look at the world and say that your mission isn't amazing just because it's smaller? It's the pebbles. It's those tiny, tiny pebbles. That's how we create a wave, and that wave turns into a tsunami. So in my opinion, it doesn't matter what your mission is, how big, how small. It could be being a good friend. Whatever it is, do it, but do it fully, and throw those pebbles out there because they will eventually make a wave.
Right. And even if we don't come from a place that lifts you up, like, just for me, for instance, my story, like my mom, I decided I'm going to college, right? It wasn't encouraged. It wasn't put on a list for me. And I was like, I went on spring break and met a girl, and she was like, come be my roommate. I was like, okay, I'll go to college. Like, that was my decision because it wasn't anything that was presented to me. And when I told my mother, she just looked at me and went, well, maybe they'll meet a nice boy and get married.
Sounds like my dad.
So obviously that's why college wasn't on my list, because my only purpose in life was to find somebody who would marry me. And maybe they'll be nice. And I say that like that because my mom made really horrible choices as far as men.
I know.
Right? But I can see.
My daddy issues are a laundry list long, so I know a thing or two.
Right? So, but now I know why she made poor choices, because the only goal was to have some man marry you.
Exactly. And that's why I talk a lot about the big shift isn't going to be in our generations. It's going to be in our children, because look at how much undoing we have to do just to get to this place where we still have so much more undoing to do. You know, for our kids, they get to start this world out where we are beginning, or where we are in our journey now. So I think that they're going to be the generation that really brings kindness back. I hope so. After the last 4 years, there's a lot of kindness that's missing in the world. I get teary thinking about it, because it was just the meanest 4 years that I've ever experienced. People would say things that were just so awful because they were emboldened to think that it was okay to be a bully.
So horrible.
It really, like, the internet bullies in the past 4 years, I mean, they've slowly started dissipating as the thing transitioned, and I don't want to get political, but just about, you know, the fact that there was 4 years where the thing that was emboldened was not kindness, but adversity.
Right. Yeah. Just like so much ugly. Like there was so much pride in the ugly. It was so confusing. I was like, oh, this is.
It was difficult. It was difficult to just exist in that time, and then to try to find worth in yourself, where, you know, you turn your head and this person says I'm a snowflake, and this person says I'm a communist, and this person says I'm a libtard, and this person says this. It's like, let's just be nice. Like, just tell me you like my headband.
Absolutely perfect. Seriously? Period.
Like, that's it. Like, just let it go. Stop being mean. Start being kind. And that can't happen unless it starts with yourself. You gotta be yourself, because if you're not, then you're gonna be miserable. And when you're miserable, you go out in the world and you treat people poorly, and not because you're a mean person, not because you're a bad person, but because you get drawn into that darkness and there's no light that you can share.
Right.
A little bit of light in yourself, and you share them, then you'll learn that it's like a candle. You know, when you touch a candle to another candle, you don't lose your flame, you just make more candles. It's the same concept. The candles can't be lit from other candles unless you start with your own, and then you continue lighting, and everybody's candle can get lit without anybody losing a flame.
Right. And the alternative is, if the only way you can lift yourself is by, you know, coming down on somebody else, that too has its own sense of up the ladder, and it gets uglier and uglier. Right. Like,
and that always stems from, exactly. And it stems from low self-esteem. I had a bully, this girl, we call her that girl, in my, I think it was sophomore year of high school. She told me to commit a civil service and kill myself.
Oh, lovely.
This person said. And then I felt I had no worth in myself, no value. So I stayed her friend for another 10 years after that. 10 years. And then one day I just had enough and I said, I'm done.
Right. Just waiting for her to accept you. Right.
Just the boundary. And to me, self-love comes in the form of boundaries. That is the applicable thing that I can do to show my self-love. And it doesn't have to be big boundaries. I have little boundaries, like putting my phone in a different room for 30 minutes to watch a show with my partner. That means 30 minutes where nobody else is involved. I have boundaries where my friends and I will reach out to each other and we'll say, hey, are you available right now emotionally? I'm really going through some stuff and I need to dump. And that boundary comes from them, and respecting the fact that they may need to say, hey, Linz, I'm really going through some stuff right now. I need a minute. Let me call you back in an hour. because respecting your own boundaries and respecting others' boundaries will help you like yourself more, because you begin to create a cushion of what's allowed around you. And it doesn't mean that the rest of the world doesn't exist. It doesn't mean that I'm ignorant to the hate and the hurt and the racism and the bigotry that exists in the world. But it means that I'm choosing to surround myself only with the things that feel good in my immediate proximity. And those boundaries are huge. They really are. I mean, I don't talk to my brother. No, and you need to, and it's hard to do, especially when it's family, especially if it's somebody you've been friends with for a long time. But you matter and you're valued. And if you don't value yourself, you can't value anybody else. And that doesn't mean that nobody else can value you. And that doesn't apply to children, because your children, that's a whole other world. You always value your children, but other people in the world, it has to start inside, because if you don't feel good, it's really, really hard to do good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, in my little one sentence where I said, you have to find your support community. That's really what I'm talking about. I just simplified it. But if I was working with somebody and they wanted to know, what do you mean by that? It means your small circle, right? Your small circle where you are emotionally safe. You need that around you on a regular basis.
Yes, your 5 closest. Yeah, they say you're the product of the 5 closest people you surround yourself with. So as I look at the different phases of my life, I sat the other day questioning, why am I not friends with this person anymore? And it's not like, no, we're not friends, we didn't have a falling out, but they aren't who I needed to have closest to me while I achieve what I'm trying to do now. And part of that is knowing who is healthy for you and who's not. And that's another that's a lesson I'm struggling with for sure. I want to see the best in everyone right away, but it's just difficult.
It is. And I find myself sometimes on the receiving end, and I have to remind myself, Dawn, man, you really don't acknowledge the knife in your back until it's coming out the front. Sometimes, like, oh yeah, the knife is really back there because here's the point now.
Yeah, I'm saving that one.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And to really simplify who those people are in your life that should be in your small circle, think about the people when you run into them in the grocery store or on the street and you have the briefest of encounters with them. When you walk away, did it energize you? Do you suddenly feel like so much better about the world and life? Or do you walk away going, oh, there's your quick answer about who you need in your circle. Because we all know those people and we don't think about it because they've always been there. And even though they make us do this internally and outwardly when we're around them, we still keep them because they're not doing anything overtly to hurt us.
Exactly. They're just a negative energy. And it's I think it was The Rock that said it, and he was like, I don't want you not to eat, I just don't want you to eat at my table. And the concept of that was, I still want you to be successful and have a good life, just sit across the restaurant from me.
This is over there.
You enjoy your dinner, you enjoy your life, I'll wave to you from across, but you're not welcome at my table anymore. And my table is very small and it's constantly getting smaller. And that doesn't mean that I'm closing people out, but it means that the people that I'm letting in are getting smaller and smaller, especially as I've put myself out there where the bullies have really come back out. And I haven't been bullied this bad since I was in high school. But I posted a video of myself, the crop top video, and a lot of people were really, really mean, and that was hard. And I was really lucky that I had built that support system, because in the past that could have crippled me. But now I was able to go to my boyfriend and say, I talk a lot about love me louder. I'm really struggling right now. I really need you to love me louder. People said really mean things. I need your voice to be louder than theirs right now because I'm struggling on my own. And part of self-love comes from knowing and asking for help. when you need it, and knowing that you really, if you can't do everything by yourself, that's okay. It doesn't make you less valuable. The fact that I'm on an SSRI for my anxiety and PTSD doesn't make me less valuable as a woman just because I need medication to get my serotonin from, and it doesn't happen naturally. Like, there's so many things that we look at that are helpful that we devalue ourselves by, when really all they're doing is giving us an opportunity to lead a clear life without blocks in the way.
Absolutely. When my son's father walked out on us, and I was going through therapy, I was like, God, I was really getting down on myself one day. She goes, Dawn, but you're so strong. Like, and I was like, no, I'm not. That's why I'm here. She goes, but you're here. You're asking for help. I was like, well, because I have to. I don't have a choice. I have this little person at home who expects that I'm going to be a whole, complete person for him. And I need to do that for him. She goes, there are so many people, Dawn, who cannot make that decision. And it didn't really stick with me because I was like, well, I don't know how that happens because that is the only reason I'm here. You know what I mean? Like, it took me a few more years of going, oh, that really is a positive attribute. Because I was there saying basically, well, I suck because I need therapy, right? If I'm not strong, I'm not worthy because I'm here.
Exactly. Asking for help is a sign of strength, in my opinion. It's the same concept as bravery. Like I tell Gaia, being scared and doing it anyway equals bravery. To me, asking for help is the scariest thing in the world. You could put me in front of a 5,000 seat audience and I could talk. I could take my top off and dance around naked, no shame. But the second you tell me to sit down in front of a person and divulge like my issues, I freak out. Like, that's when I shut down. And I constantly avoid going to therapy, and because I've had bad experiences with therapists too. And I wish that there was a stronger blockade between who's allowed to practice in the mental health field and who's not, especially when it comes to trauma work, because I have PTSD from abuses. Having somebody that practiced out of their depth really would open up parts of my mind that I hadn't looked at since I was 4 or 5, and then leave them open without help was really difficult for me. And part of me fending for myself was learning to say, well, I asked this person for help, but the help that they're giving me is toxic. It's like you ask somebody for a glass of water and they hand you something from Flint, Michigan. Like, that's not fair. We know that's toxic. We're not going to do that. We're not going to drink that. So I had to say, I can't see you anymore. And now I'm in the process of saying, okay, how can I trust someone else? And that's me. That's not on them. Learning to trust someone is not their responsibility. That's your responsibility. It's their responsibility to keep your trust. You know? Right. But learning to trust is really, really hard. And my clients, I think that's what makes it so powerful for them, to kind of circle back to what we do here, is the ability to make a decision for yourself almost a year in advance, and then support an entire community of women while you build fear and the comparison monster over months. And then making that decision to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to trust someone to see me the way that I want to be seen. And that is huge. That's a huge, huge thing to be able to do for yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I almost feel like it's a prerequisite. Like, at some point we should have to do that. Like in Germany, when they graduate high school, they have to spend a year in the service or something. I feel like as women, it should be like a prerequisite to like have that. And now we just need to come up with the prerequisite for the males here.
Right. Good mommies. That's still our. It still falls on us.
Yeah. Seriously. Whoever is raising, whoever is in charge of raising children and neighborhood children, you know what I mean? Like, it's okay to lift up somebody else's child if nobody's there lifting them up too, right? Like,
exactly.
Because like you talked about that teaching assistant, right? Like. Really? He didn't have to tell you anything. He could have just sat there and go, man, this girl is such a mess. Wash her damn face.
Yeah, exactly.
Why doesn't she wash her damn face?
Yeah, that's what my other high school teacher did. It was mortifying. It was one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. And I actually never said anything about it until now. But in the theater company the theater troupe I was in, we always had this end of the year senior thing where where the whole theater department come together and the teachers would give like little funny gifts to everyone. And my teacher gave me a bottle of eye makeup remover, and it was mortifying. I left the party early and I didn't go back because it was funny and I knew it was a joke, but what she didn't know was the reason that my eyeliner was like that was because I was out until 2 a.m. because my mom and dad kicked me out of the house and my friend's parents had to pick me up on the corner of the road, or I slept under the computer desk and hid in the computer office room of the apartment complex because I couldn't be in my house. So they didn't know this. So when you're mean to somebody for no reason, even if you think it's a joke, you could really hurt them.
Absolutely.
That's what I say to these women who are in multi-level marketing right now, because there's some really good products out there, but there's becoming such a bad name. You know, they call it the Hun community now, because women are approaching other women negatively first. They're not coming from a place of positivity. They're coming from a place of pointing out your flaws. And that's really mean. And, you know, I said something to someone the other day because I have the inner strength and the inner core that I've built over time to be able to say, you know, this made me feel like you were calling me fat and telling me my worth was based on my weight. If you said that to another woman, you could really hurt her. Perhaps you should try a different approach next time. Maybe another active ingredient in these gummies that you're trying to sell that might be more than just weight loss, because my value isn't based on BMI. And if you try to make women feel like it is, you could really hurt someone who doesn't have that strength built up yet. So that's another thing we're dealing with as women, is just like the constant barrage of products being forced down us.
Yeah, that hurts. Yeah, that hurts. That hurts so desperately. Like, how is that, you know, and then now just my mind is going back to that person. Like, so is that why you're selling it? Because you know, you hate your body, right? Is it, you know, because obviously to sell it, you're probably taking it and.
Right. And I always tell people, if you believe in something and it's what you love, do it. Like, for example, my sister is a bodybuilder. I am a size 20. She is a size 4, chiseled as can be. We found our power in completely different ways. She found hers through her body, through physical first. I found mine through mental first. So I think of it a little bit like, you know, if I relate it back to theater, you've got, you know, the Meisner who starts from emotion, and then you've got the Meyerhold that works physical and then inward. That's like the dichotomy of my family. Is my sister is a physical to mental, I'm a mental to physical. And there's nothing wrong with either one. If you find your strength in the gym and you find your strength in taking care of your body and your brain, do it. But don't feel like you have to find your strength that way if you already have it. You're not obligated. You can love yourself now. That's totally fine.
Even better, really.
Yeah.
Is to love yourself all along the way. Like,
exactly.
Even if you're not happy with the size that you are, you know, actually, you're never going to get there if you think that that's when everything's going to be okay in your life. Like, if you think that your worth is based on that, like, that's when the sun will come out and the birds will sing and the right man will come along, or the man that I have will finally see me as I am. If he doesn't see you at 250 pounds, he is not going to see you properly at 125. Right?
Snaps for that. Yes. It's like what my mom used to say to me growing up. She used to always say because I was a teen that acted out a little bit. So she'd be like, I don't have to always like you, but I always have to love you. And that's how I look at like myself too. Is I don't always have to like myself, but I always have to love myself. It's, you know, especially if there's moms listening to it. If you view yourself the way you view your child, there's nothing that your child could do that would ever make you not love them. Look at yourself the same way.
Yeah. And once you start loving yourself, if those healthier choices are something you want to make, it is easier to make them.
Exactly. Right? Exactly. You find where your strength comes from and don't let anybody else tell you. You know, if your power comes from reading books, like my boyfriend, he's a reader, read. If your power comes from speaking and connecting, like I feel like mine does, from speaking and connecting to people, do that. If your power comes from running 6 miles a day and feeling a strength in your body, which makes your brain feel like it's okay to carry on because it knows it has a strong body, that's okay. But nobody gets to dictate where your strength comes from except for you.
Or your worth.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Hand in hand, really. Hand in hand. If anybody's seeing the parallels, we have built them for you. It is like a tasty freeze soft serve, right? Chocolate and vanilla.
Yes. Exactly.
Build it
Exactly.
high.
And then you start doing good things for yourself and you put those sprinkles right on, you know, and that's what the self-love experience is. It's that sprinkles or that strawberry dip. It's that little icing on the cake that just takes you somewhere else when you're as a step on your work, you know. It's
Absolutely.
really
I just love this beautiful analogy that we built together over ice cream. I am going to now have to think about where my next sprinkles come from or my salty
yeah,
caramel comes from. Like I am in search of
I
my
love
next
it.
salty
I love it.
caramel.
I love it. And you know what? That's such a good way to look at it because then you're looking for little things to add to your life rather than replace them, which is exciting. Because when you're not looking to constantly change yourself, then you can start bringing things in. And that doesn't mean that you don't confront yourself. You know, you can't like yourself unless you look at yourself. And that's really, really hard to do. You know, you got to make sure that we're pulling from ice cream and not like sour milk. You know, you have to look at yourself and make sure, you know, like I say, like if we're using the ice cream analogy and you're opening up the freezer, you got to read the labels and check the expiration date. If something no longer serves you, throw it out. And that's, I think, a really good way to put that concept in is evaluate yourself, see what's still serving you, like soft serve, and then get rid of anything that doesn't, and then decide what sprinkles, what crunchies, what little things you can start adding into your life to make you feel better. Going to the makeup store, buying yourself a new lip gloss once a week or a highlighter. You know, like I'm looking at my highlight popping right now and I'm happy I spent the $20 at Lime Crime and gave myself a little sprinkle, you know. So it's little things that I feel like are what can help the most because it's not always the big things, you know. You can get ice cream and it's great, but when you give, you know, if you hold up in front of a child a plain ice cream cone or an ice cream cone with sprinkles, which one are they going to want? It's the same thing with
I
womanhood.
love it. I love it. Now, I don't want to take you away from your work. I know you have today's a client day. I'm imagining that beautiful woman
Perfect
down
timing
there.
too.
So excited for what she is doing. But is there anything that you want to wrap up with or leave us with today, Lindsay Ray?
Yeah, I want to say, to me, the biggest thing that you can do for yourself every day is to set one boundary for yourself. So if I'm leaving you with anything for yourself, it's to set the boundary, no matter what it is, whether it is a friend that's taking too much or a parent that isn't respecting your time, or having to tell your child that they need to listen and go to bed on time. Whatever that boundary may be, set it for yourself and then live through it and see how it makes you feel. And then come back and tell me, because I think that setting boundaries is the best way to show yourself love.
Absolutely. In fact, if you go into my page's timeline last week, that was the theme. Self-love is
Yeah.
boundaries and self-love. Like your boundaries are where you love
They're
yourself
intermingled.
right? It's where you love yourself the fiercest.
Exactly. When you protect yourself.
Yeah.
And exactly. And that doesn't mean blocking yourself off from the world and making yourself unavailable to opportunities. It just means, you know, put a little cushion around you.
Absolutely.
Think of it like COVID, when we started thinking what could concerts be, and it's just a bunch of people in plastic bubble balls. Your bubble ball, you know, and then everybody else can be there just 6 feet away, you know.
Yeah.
Social distance the bullshit.
Exactly.
Let's
just
go with
get it
that.
outside your bubble.
Get it out of the bubble. Get it past the 6 feet. Doesn't mean it won't be there to protect yourself.
I have enjoyed this conversation so immensely. I'm so happy I finally got to chat with you. And I'm going to have to start thinking about when I put my date on the calendar a year down the road. Because
yes.
I should probably be doing it now. Because I turned 60 this year. And
ooh, yes. Yes. And I booked until 2022. So I tell everyone we put 2022 on sale for booking in advance. And then we started this thing called the Booty Bank, where you can put a little bit of money every month towards your art that may not, for your session that won't happen until next year. And then you can save a little bit on it too. So it just incentivizes you to become part of the community that we've built. And to me, part of the experience really is the weight and the camaraderie that you build with the other women. So I say the further you book out, the better.
Awesome. I'm going to do it. I deserve it.
I love it. I can't wait to create with you and your amazing hair.
Thank you. I love my hair.
You should. It's amazing. It's your
Thank you.
staple.
It really is. It really is. I actually, 30 plus years, this has been my hair. So my son is 32. Well, he'll be 32 at the end of the month. And I decided a couple years ago to grow my hair. And every time he would see me, he'd go, I know it's there, but it still bothers me every time. Like, it's always shocking to me that it's not the other hair. And when I finally took it back off again, he was like, oh yeah, phew, there's mom. I was like,
I love it.
yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. So he and other people around me now are required, when I start to talk about growing my hair out again, for whatever reason, to just slap me and say, no, Dawn, no, you know you don't like it.
Right. Exactly. I love it. Oh, well, this was great. I got to clean up and get ready for my
Yes,
client.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
This was
Enjoy
amazing.
your day.
Thank you.
There will be all the links. There will be all the things. And if you can't find Lindsay yourself, hit me up. I will make the connection for you. This is Dawn Scannell saying bye-bye for now. We'll see you next week. Thank you, Lindsay Ray. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye,